The announcement in February was characteristically stoic, a model of royal understatement. Yet the word cancer has a resonance that obliterates protocol. For a man whose life has been lived on a schedule timed to the minute, a diagnosis introduces a terrifying, anarchic variable. His treatment, while reportedly going well, is not just a medical process, it is a daily confrontation with vulnerability. The sheer physical toll of chemotherapy, the fatigue, the nausea, the mental fog is a brutal equalizer. It does not bow to a crown. In this context, the emotional update becomes an act of high-wire performance. Every public appearance now carries a subtext. How is he, really? The slight hesitation before rising, the careful enunciation, the fleeting look of concentration as he gathers strength, these are the tells. He is a man marshaling every ounce of energy to project the very stability his body is being challenged to maintain. The heartbreaking element lies in this sheer willpower. He is struggling not just with the content of his message, but with the fundamental act of appearing. The sovereign's two bodies, the body politic and the body natural, are at war, and the world is invited, unintentionally, to watch the conflict play out on his face. It is the struggle of a patient willing himself to be a king for just a few minutes more. A daughter-in-law's agony and a nation's gaze. If the king's cancer is a private battle fought in public view, the catastrophic health crisis of the Princess of Wales, Catherine, is a family tragedy magnified to global scale. For Charles, Catherine is not just the future queen, she is the beloved wife of his heir, the mother of his grandchildren, and a daughter-in-law with whom he shares a deep, well-documented bond of respect and affection. Her abdominal surgery and subsequent graver cancer diagnosis have struck at the heart of the family's next generation.
The king's own experience undoubtedly sharpens the agony. He knows intimately the shock of the news, the dread of telling one's children, the arduous road ahead. To be navigating his own treatment while carrying the anguish for a young mother in the prime of her life is a paternal and patriarchal burden of immense weight. When he speaks of heartfelt thoughts in an update, the phrase is stripped of its ceremonial veneer. It is literal. His struggle, then, is layered. He is grappling with his own mortality while fearing for another's, all while knowing his family, his son William, his grandchildren, are enduring a nightmare. Furthermore, the preceding weeks of global speculation and grotesque conspiracy theories about Catherine's absence must have been a source of immense frustration and distress for a family craving privacy. To then have her courageously reveal her diagnosis, forcing her into a vulnerability no one would choose, adds a layer of protective fury to a king's sorrow. His emotional state during a public address is thus a conduit for this maelstrom of familial love, fear, and fury. Beneath these acute crises lies the constant grinding pressure of the institution he now leads. Charles ascended the throne not in the spring of hope, but in the autumn of his life, following the death of the beloved, steadfast anchor of the monarchy, Queen Elizabeth II. His reign was always destined to be one of transition and potential contraction. He has shouldered this with a surprising adaptability, seeking to modernize while preserving continuity. Yet the modern media ecosystem is a relentless coliseum. It demands transparency, yet feasts on mystery. It craves human emotion, yet weaponizes vulnerability. In this environment, every tremor of the hand, every catch in the voice, is not just observed but dissected, memified, and spun into narrative. The king's struggle, then, is also a meta-struggle, the effort to maintain dignified composure while knowing that any slip will become a global headline. He must be human enough to earn empathy, but never so human as to appear weak or unstable.
This digital gaze exacerbates the loneliness of the throne. Elizabeth II had the lifelong training and the personality to build an impenetrable carapace. Charles, more emotionally translucent, carries his heart closer to the surface. In an emotional update, we see him pressing against the limits of that carapace. The struggle is to keep the professional mask in place, while the human face, etched with worry and illness, threatens to break through. It is an exhausting, soul-draining performance of statecraft. The anatomy of the struggle, a moment-by-moment analysis. Rewatching the specific update that sparked this wave of concern, one can chart the silent battle. They are the map of his fatigue. There is a slight glassiness, a distance, as if part of his focus is turned inward,
monitoring his own stamina, or mentally touching base with a well of personal pain before accessing the public words. At key phrases, especially those referencing family, health, or service, it softens and thickens almost imperceptibly. There is a careful, deliberate pacing, a man choosing his footing on uncertain ground. They are often clasped, a classic gesture of self-containment. At one moment, they might tighten, the knuckles whitening slightly, a physical manifestation of holding something difficult at bay. The micro-pauses between sentences are charged. They are not the regal pauses of emphasis, but the brief respites of a man gathering his resources for the next line. In these milliseconds, the mask slips just enough for the weariness to show. This is not a performance of weakness, but one of Herculean effort. It is the struggle of Atlas, not to hold up the sky, but to hold together the disparate fragments of his world, his health, his family, and his crown.
History offers parallels, but few with this specific concurrent intensity. George VI, battling a stammer and the horrors of war, carried the weight of a nation's survival. Elizabeth II, in the aftermath of Princess Diana's death, had to balance icy private grief with public expectation. Charles's predicament echoes both, a health battle like his grandfather, George VI, and a family in crisis media storm like his mother's. Yet his is uniquely compounded by happening simultaneously and in the hyperspeed digital age. His struggle is therefore historic in its multi-fronted visibility. The path forward. What the struggle reveals. Paradoxically, this heartbreaking public vulnerability may redefine his reign. The struggle makes him legibly, undeniably human. In an era skeptical of inherited privilege, raw humanity is the monarchy's most potent currency. His shared experience with Catherine has created a silent, powerful bond with millions of cancer patients and their families. His determination to work, even from a state of frailty, is a profound statement about duty, not as privilege, but as service. The path forward is one of careful calibration. He must, for the institution's sake, project enough strength to assure continuity. But he must also, for his own humanity and the public's connection, allow the struggle to be seen. It is a near impossible line to walk. In the end, the image of King Charles III struggling through an emotional update is more than a news clip. It is a portrait of 21st century kingship. It is the picture of a man whose long wait for the throne ended just as life's harshest trials began. His struggle is not with his duty, but through it. He is not crumbling under the weight. He is bearing it, one measured word, one steady breath, one heartbreakingly visible effort at a time. The world watches, no longer just as subjects or critics, but as witnesses to a singular human story. A king in his winter, facing storms with a battered but unbroken will, proving that the deepest form of courage is not the absence of struggle, but the dignity with which it is endured. And in that dignity, in that very human fight, he may ultimately find the defining purpose and connection of his reign.
The image was meant to convey stability. The king, seated at the ornate desk of the Buckingham Palace 1844 room, a portrait of his late father overlooking his shoulder. He was to deliver a brief, pre-recorded update on a matter of state, a Commonwealth Day message. The words on the teleprompter were diplomatic, hopeful, forward-looking. Yet, as the cameras rolled, something far more profound and human eclipsed the script. Viewers around the world didn't just hear a sovereign's address. They witnessed a man, a father, and a monarch bearing, with visible effort, a crushing convergence of private and public storms. This wasn't merely a struggle. It was a heartbreaking glimpse into the lonely calculus of duty when the heart is under siege. To understand the emotion that flickered in his eyes, a blend of resilience, sorrow, and profound weariness, is to map the perfect storm that has broken upon the reign of Charles III. His update came not in a vacuum of calm, but at the violent confluence of three seismic events: a personal cancer fight shrouded in both public goodwill and private fear, the devastating and very public collapse of a daughter-in-law's health, and the relentless, corrosive pressures of modern monarchy. Each alone is a formidable burden. Together, they form an almost Shakespearean trial of the soul.